who has Kung Fu and Wude makes the other know he can break him. His hands go out like lightning, and the other doesn't want to fight anymore. This is the concept and philosophy that your Sifu, the master that gets killed in the beginning of the recently out indie action title from sloclap, Sifu, and it is the underlying theme throughout the entire genre that seems to be overlooked. Wude speaks of having the power to crush your foes, but having the restraint to let them live. Across media, revenge is seen as a concept that is totally black and white. Those who give in to it are told they lose a part of themselves. They become more corrupt or turn into the thing they hate the most. Either that, or it's as if some power fantasy meant for the protagonist to wreck stuff up. It's constantly portrayed as something that you shouldn't do. Sifu does something we haven't seen before, allowing the player to give in to revenge, but not losing one's morality and still somehow gaining the moral high ground. The true ending of the game requires the player to basically go through an added challenge just to spare the 5 main bosses. How the game implements the philosophy of Wude is deeply profound. Instead of seeing revenge as something inherently evil and cruel, Wude believes that it is needed when necessary. Some wrongs need to be made right, but that doesn't mean the protagonist needs to become the monster they fight. Taking the path of Wude means defeating your enemies, but sparing them so they can realize their mistakes, which is corny, but adds to the power fantasy of becoming this enlightened grandmaster. It isn't enough just to be able to beat people up. One must overcome the constraints of both body and mind to achieve a greater state of being. By sparing these goons who destroyed your life, you not only manage to redeem yourself and avenge your Sifu, but you also uphold his teachings and even transplant them into these lost people you once considered enemies. Basically, what we are getting at is that revenge can be good, which is a unique take on the trope. Fajar, the botanist, full evil, kills children, creates junkies, no relationship with his subordinates, does not speak. Sean, the fighter, honorable evil, hurts people but only by way of voluntary tests, respected for his strength, with the people who survive his gauntlets being stronger people for it. Justifies his actions with might and excellence. Kuroki, the artist, neutral. She knows what evil is and wants to cleanse herself of that. She lives in full retreat, contemplating her failures and losses. Doesn't hurt anyone, but doesn't help anyone either. Jinfeng, the CEO, selfish good. She uses her gold power to make herself rich, but she doesn't keep it all to herself. Her money and connections are used to enhance the community on the other side. She can't be considered full good because she still lines her own pockets, using the stolen powers for herself. Yang, the leader, full good. He doesn't use the power he stole for anything beyond helping people. Despite that, he has the most blood in his hands given the number of people he took down in the intro. The deeper you go into revenge, the better people you are fighting. Towards the end, you're basically fighting volunteers at a soup kitchen, and people who just want to cure an illness. They believe in their heart of hearts that they are doing good, and the protagonist is some raging force seeking to destroy that. Someone inherently with bad intentions. Going the normal genocide playthrough had us feeling bad towards the end and not like a hero at all. However, the path of Wude makes you transcend all that and puts you on the side you can fully believe that is right. The question of necessary evil is brought up constantly throughout the plot. Yang uses the power of the Earth Talisman to basically create a healing church, but carried out a massacre to get to where he is. By defeating him and sparing him to get the true ending, you not only cement the errors of his ways, you also prove that the teaching of your Sifu are superior. It's a great play on the concepts of good and evil that we find very poetic. Plus, it's implied that you establish new schools with the reformed bosses, which plays on the concept of redemption, which is something we're big fans of. The concept of Wude is barely mentioned leading up to the ending of the game, which is where we first hear of it. Despite that, it's built up pretty naturally, as we slowly learn that your Sifu clearly had some creed he believed in, and was part of some shadowy group called the Guardians, and every good secret organization needs to have a solid creed to follow. By finding the many collectibles in the game, we get to learn more about the 5 main bosses and a little bit about the Guardians and their purposes. Turns out, the Guardians were protectors of 5 magical talismans, which are powerful artifacts said to corrupt those who used them. This gives us a better understanding between the 2 opposing forces. The Guardians' entire purpose was to prevent the use of these talismans that were said to be too dangerous to use. However, Yang and the gang most likely believed they could use their powers for good and be above the corrupting influence. We understand that Yang wanted to use the talismans to save his wife and child, and returned after their death in an act of wrongfully placed ambitions to overthrow the previous Guardians.
You were supposed to guard the talisman, not steal it.
It's the only way to save them, Sifu.
You failed to honor your oath. You are unworthy. Now leave.
He thought they were wrong and cruel. He believed he could make a better world if things were done differently. A world where his family would survive. We see that Yang had a pure goal in mind. He just didn't care how many lives he had to take to get there. The same could be said for the rest of the bosses. The talismans are represented by the wood, fire, water, metal, and earth talismans, which can be seen by the powers they grant to their respective bosses. Fajar summons a sprawling bamboo forest, while Kuroki makes you fight in an arena of crashing waves. You get the picture. While it's mostly speculative, there had to be a mutual understanding of each boss's goal for them to follow under Yang. For the case of Fajar, while still being a drug kingpin scumbag with no redeeming qualities, he might have faced terrible discrimination for being mute, on top of being someone with severe mental illnesses, as we learn from the collectibles. Maybe he grew up in the slums, and his use of his talisman to create drugs is his weird way of giving back to his community and allowing them some wealth and protection. We haven't taken into consideration the corrupting influences of the talismans on him, which makes you question whether he was a victim. Kuroki, on the other hand, has one of the most tragic backstories in the game. We find out that she killed her twin sister by accident in the past, which traumatized her to the point of developing a split personality with her sister's image. Her obsession with her own imagery in her art could be a cry for help, or her own way of atoning by keeping the image of her sister alive. It is perfectly fitting, too, that she holds the water talisman, giving her the theme of reflection. We're not trying to justify these people's actions, but trying to give the context as to why they would join Yang. These people are deeply damaged, 2 of them literally being disabled, and they all share in their belief in Yang to create a better world. This makes us understand why they're so loyal and supportive of each other, and gives us some insight of the kinship they share. It's actually pretty wholesome if you think about it. A straight-up found family trope turned evil. The depth of these characters makes you really question how you play and figure out your place in the story. It makes you look deeper into the philosophical themes of each character in relation to yours, because at the core of it, they want to right a wrong, just like you. Taking the path of Wude is the hardest way to play the game. It makes you take up an added challenge on top of an already difficult game, just for an extra cutscene. But if you look deeper into it, it's a testament of beliefs. By pushing through this challenge that many can seem as impossible or even pointless, you honor your Sifu and your family. You redeem those who lost their way and give them that helping hand. Not for some ambition like Yang did, but a true second chance. You breathe and exhale the teachings of Wude, letting it carry on to your fists and letting it pull you back to mercy when needed. The true ending of the game isn't just an extra cutscene or a hint to the sequel. It's a mark of mastery. The path of Wude is a hard one, but can you truly call yourself a master, taking the easy route? Well, that's for you to decide. Thank you for watching this feature video from us to you. If you love what we've talked about here, or love the game Sifu and what it represents, do subscribe to our channel and hit that notification icon for more awesome features like these. We post new content every week. Until then, cheers!